The Hindu shuffle looks like this, and this is the way many people would shuffle cards in Asia. You will also see variations that look like that. And it is basically like an overhand shuffle, just small packets being chopped off just in this position. Now it's a very versatile shuffle, and we're going to look at various applications in it. Now first of all, the normal Hindu shuffle. Here is the right hand grip, 2 fingers and the thumb holding it at an angle of about 45 degrees. The left hand comes over and takes the deck in about elevated dealing position, pulls off a few cards and drops them into dealing position. Go back, take a few cards, pull them off, drop them, and so on until all the cards are used up. Remember to have the forefinger here at the outer end, because otherwise you're going to drop the cards on the floor. So, having looked at that, let's see a few applications of the Hindu shuffle. The Hindu shuffle is a wonderful way to glimpse the bottom card, because while we are shuffling the cards, we can interrupt at any time. Just give it a little tap at the inner end, obviously squaring the cards, and thereby getting a glimpse of the bottom card. So let me turn over so you can see this very nicely. Like this. So the way to use that is shuffle off, glimpse the card, shuffle until I have a small little packet left, drop it on top but maintain a break. Then cut. Either double cut in the hand, cut the packet on the table, or restart another Hindu shuffle by pulling off first the packet above the break. Either way will deliver the cited card on the bottom of the card, and that can be used in manifold ways in subsequent card effects. Another very useful way for the Hindu shuffle is for a key card placement. Actually can be done right after a card has been cited. So let's assume we ask a spectator to select the card by saying stop. Sir, please say stop whenever you like. And we, in the process, we do the glimpse. So we know the key card is the 10 of spades. Spectator takes the card, of diamonds. While the spectator shows the card around, we finish the shuffle, drop the packet on top, maintain the break, cut to the bottom, so we are back here. We restart a Hindu shuffle until the spectator calls stop. He will replace the card on top. Now we can either drop the right-hand packet directly on top, thus bringing the key card on top of selection. Or we go in a little bit more subtle way. Apparently, we continue the shuffle, but in reality, we're pulling off the bottom few cards. It doesn't matter if it's one card, several cards, and here is how it's done. The thumb and the middle finger, they form a configuration like this, yes? So that when you lower the right packet, at some point, the fingers will touch the sides of the bottom few cards, and that's enough to just pull them off. If you look up at this point, you have a little misdirection, just saying, please don't forget your card. Do the first shuffle movement, then as soon as you've done it, go down and continue the shuffle. That's a very deceptive way of looking at the key card, placing it at the same time. And a further very useful and clever application will be as a force. So let's see how to handle that. Either you start with a card you have to force, so you place it beforehand beneath the deck, or you use the Hindu shuffle glimpse to gain knowledge of the bottom card and bring it back to the bottom. Now starts the procedure. We explain to the spectator, sir, I would like you to say stop whenever I'm going to shuffle the cards like that. And we start the shuffle by pulling off a few cards from the bottom. We look at him, we go back, and immediately show the bottom card as an example. So we say, for instance, if we stop here, you would have the 8 of hearts. Look up again, continue the shuffle, but pull off a few cards from the bottom. Continue for a few more packets, or if you said stop here, it will be the ace of diamonds. Look up again and said, so regardless where you stop, it's going to be each time a different card. Now that's a very deceptive way to get into the Hindu shuffle force. Now you apparently repeat exactly the same procedure. However, you're not pulling off any cards from the bottom, just keeping the bottom card on the bottom. As soon as the spectator says stop, you can show him the card, and that's the fourth card. Now you can either leave it in the packet and continue the shuffle, or you can ask him to take it out. You can give it to him like so, or let's say you have a different back design you don't want to disclose, you can turn it over like that and deal it on the table. Of course, in this case, you would be seeing the card, so it's important to use this in a trick, but this wouldn't matter. At this point, rather than doing either of the things I've just said, is to continue the shuffle by pulling off a few cards from the bottom and say, so you could have stopped me here, and we go back to what we initially used when we started to explain to the spectator how to proceed during the Hindu shuffle to have one selected. That's a very nice way to force a card on a spectator.
Well, let me show you a very special card. I always carry this with me. It has a name. It's called the Magus Card. Now, I'm not at liberty to disclose why this is called the Magus Card, but as you can see, these are a reproduction, of course, not real, but the reproduction of real hieroglyphics. Mm-hmm. So they are hieroglyphic symbols that were copied, from a wall in a pyramid. Yes, yes, and they were handed over for thousands of years. It's about 2,500 years to generation of magicians. Yes, and I have transferred them to a playing card. At that time, they didn't have playing cards, of course, but I transferred it. So let me show you a curious experiment. I'm going to put it in somewhere in the pack. I don't know exactly where it is, but it's lost somewhere. And I would like you to determine a card. So I'm going to shuffle the cards like that, and you just say stop. Maybe, John, you go and say stop, and we look at the bottom card. So if you say stop a little later, it's going to be another card. If you say stop another line, it's going to be another card. It's all dependent what moment you say stop.
Right.
Good. So please say stop whenever it pleases you.
Stop.
Stop. Good. Now, you see your card? This is a very important card. Good? Mm-hmm. Please remember it. Good. Here it is, somewhere. And somewhere is the Magus Card, right? Mm-hmm. So let's see if it can help us bring this experiment to a successful conclusion. Now, actually, the only thing we have to do is follow the instructions. I translate them for you because I don't know, you speak hieroglyphics? No, that's what I thought so. I have studied that. So it says 2/3 of the deck have to be cut over here. That's what this means. I mean, go ahead. Cut 2/3. Yes. Good. And then it says, the bird says, you must turn it over. I mean, it's exactly. Now it says, the way you have to cut half of that. You go and cut over here. Yes? Very good. And it says you have to complete like this. Yes. Mm-hmm. And then the last one says you have to cut, wherever you cut, like that. And then, so it says, we can find your card which is hopelessly lost and shuffled in the pack. I don't know, what was your card?
6 of hearts.
6 of hearts?
Mm-hmm.
6 of hearts.
That's incredible.
Well, the Magus Card knows. Do you know how it knows?
Well, then I'm impressed with the card.
Well, I mean, this actually means Magus Card. There is a translation on the other side, which is, yes, a 6 of hearts, yes.
That's crazy.
And you could have picked any other card, of course.
The Magus Card is a very nice application of the Hindu shuffle force. So what we need is a card you can obtain at every magic dealer. It is a normal face card and the back is blank. Now you can paint any kind of symbols that go with the presentation you would like. I mean, I'm always trying to give you a specific presentation as an example. But once you recognize the principles, why it's used in that way, you can of course vary it according to your preferences. So I put some real hieroglyphs. That's very important. Whether you put Chinese characters or African characters, make sure they are authentic characters, because maybe there is somebody in the audience who knows about these things, and then it's going to feel ridiculous if it's just made up. So the only preparation besides that, the card can be introduced at any time in the act, which is very practical. The only preparation is that the card which matches the Magus card is on top of the deck. So here are the mechanics. The presentation you can take by reviewing the performance section. The card goes on the top, and before it goes there, the little finger obtains a break below the top card, and you double undercut or triple undercut the top two cards at the bottom. So we end up having the 6 from the deck on the bottom and the Magus card second from the bottom. Here we go through the procedures we already looked at in the technical section to eventually Hindu shuffle force the 6 on the spectator. Now here we have a very nice synergy, whether we prefer to shuffle, again it doesn't really matter, or leave it as it is. When we spread the deck and identify the location of the Magus card, by cutting at that spot, we automatically bring the 6 on top. I'd like to draw your attention on how to avoid that the cutting happens in an obvious form. So here's a way of doing it. Separator, flick this a little bit forward, the attention will go with the moving card, and it's just natural to pick up from left to right and put it on top, yes? And so we have cut the pack imperceptibly. Now, the next sequence is a very interesting cut I learned from a wonderful German magician who was one of my inspirational sources in magic when I was a young boy, who was Rolf Andra. Very few people will know him, but he was a very famous professional magician in the 50s, 60s, and 70s in Germany. So Rolf Andra showed me this, and I call it the Chinese cut. In this particular context, of course, it's the hieroglyphics cut. So I apparently, yes, read off the instructions, but let me just explain the cut. For clarity, I'm going to turn over the top card. So 2/3 are being cut over, yes, and the cut completed, but crosswise. Then you ask the next spectator to cut about half of the bottom packet and put it on top crosswise. Then you cut yourself at these and put theirs on top. And it looks very amusing, and it's practically impossible to follow that it is a false cut. Also because the amusing aspect of the presentation prevents people from thinking about the method. And now, as in the presentation you could see, I say, and if this all, if this really true, the instructions are really correct, you have cut yourself to the 6 of hearts. And you know how the Magus card knew? Well, already was there from the very beginning. Well, in just a minute, I would like you to take any card from this pack. However, not face up, because otherwise you would see which one to take, which spoils the whole thing. But you must select it secretly. So, and I'm going to shuffle the cards like that, and when you say stop, that's when I stop, and you are going, actually I'm going to, let me do another cut, start over again, so you have a choice from the beginning, whenever it pleases you.
Stop.
Stop. Good. You want this card or that card?
This card.
Please. Take it, look at it, both of you look at it. Yes? Make sure you remember it. Very good. May I turn around?
Okay, yes.
Very good. Please put the card back wherever it pleases you. Go ahead. Yes, yes. Somewhere in the middle, and I'm going to put the deck on the table and isolate it with a magic circle. A magic circle only the magician's hand is allowed to penetrate, which is this one. It's my hand. I do. Look, but you look. I take out an imaginary card. Yes? I turn it over, and I put it back. Yes, it's all in the circle of imagination.
Mm-hmm.
Now let me remove the circle of imagination, put it back here, and something in the world of reality manifests itself. A card has turned over. Yes, the one I turned over. But it's not any card, it's exactly the 5 of clubs, correct?
It's not my
Yes?
card. It's not my card.
It's the 5 of clubs.
No.
Yes, this is the 5 of clubs.
That is the 5 of clubs.
That's what I was saying. Yes. Oh, that's not your card, of course. No, I know, of course. Yes.
Okay.
I have a sense for dramatics. Yes. That's why I got because the 5 tells you something. 5 tells you something.
I don't know what it tells me.
I tell you, I think we have to, from here, count 5 cards. Look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What was your card?
3 of spades.
The 3 of spades it is. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's it.
So many people say, oh, I wouldn't want to play cards with you. I have no idea why they say that, you know.
Holy smokes.
Voilà for Aces is directly from my Card College Leiter book, and it perfectly illustrates the application of a Hindu shuffle. It's the original idea of Al Leach, A Dishonest Mistake, from his booklet Cardmanship. Now we need a very minimal setup. In this case I take the 5 of spades, which we're going to put on the bottom of the deck, followed by the 4 aces in any order. So here is a setup. 4 aces, the reversed 5 of spades, and the remainder of the deck. To protect the setup, I cover it with 1 indifferent card. So that allows me at the beginning to spread the deck like so. And when I pick it up, I just double undercut or triple undercut the bottom cover card to the top. So now the setup is free. The card is selected via the Hindu shuffle. So the degree of freedom of the selection will be exactly the same in the degree of freedom of the replacement. And once the spectator has looked at the card, in our example, it shall be the Jack of Clubs. He replaces it. Rather than dropping the whole packet, I use the same ruse we have seen in the Hindu shuffle force. I extract some cards from the bottom, at least the 5 cards, the 5 and the aces. Of course, it's more you can look up at this one, make a little comment, or just do it because it's absolutely invisible to the eye. At this moment, we have the setup directly on top of the selected card. Now, the staging, the presentation, I take out the card, put it back, and I like to use this little gag where I say the 5 of spades, and you know, in a voice, in tone of voice that makes the spectator think I mean their selection, because that justifies that I have the wrong card. Otherwise, it's not so easy to justify the card. You know, if you just spread the deck and you say, oh, there is a 5, I'm going to count 5 cards. That, to me, just doesn't feel right. So create a little humorous situation, and then you say, but the 5 tells us something. Very often, somebody will say, well, you have to count 5 cards. If nobody says that, it doesn't matter. I say it myself. I say, well, it's in Da Vinci Code or whatever. It tells us it's a sign. So at that point, get rid of the 5. Slowly, very clearly, count 1, 2, 3, 4, and I already bring the cards in a configuration that afterwards will allow me to flip them over so to display the 4 aces in one flash and reveal the selected card. Now, this trick is a very nice trick and it will please everybody, but there is a potential problem that is present in all the tricks that have so-called kicker. Yes? You have the revelation of a card or whatever, and then you add something. Because in that particular case, if you look at the structure of the effect, the aces really have nothing to do with the selected card. So, in my opinion, it would be wrong to immediately go there and turn over the aces, and here are the 4 aces. This spoils the emotion, the final emotion. I think a good way to use the revelation of the aces is like either as a lead-in to the next effect by saying, oh, by the way, I'd like to show you one of my favorite tricks with the 4 aces. Or, as I use it there, by saying, oh, many people say, I would want to play cards with you. I have no idea why. So once you recognize the principle, the way of interpreting it, you can find your own way to present that.